Now I'll be discussing methods of cardiovascular training. Just like different ways to construct a weight training workout, we have the same for cardiovascular training. I will go into greater detail about these 5 types of training, but just to name them off first, we have continuous training, interval training, fartlek training, circuit training, and cross-training. Continuous training. Continuous training is continuous. You don't vary anything, you don't vary your intensity, you are just going point to point. Not even really point to point because there could be hills. You are maintaining the same target training zone. So if your body starts responding the way that you might not want it to, it's getting too hard, your heart rate's increasing, maybe you would slow down in continuous training to keep your heart rate in the optimal zone. So this is good for low to moderate intensities where you want to make sure that you don't go too high. You're to protect the heart, to protect the rest of the body in fragile disease states that they may be incurring. So there's not intervals. It is one speed, start it. When you reach your duration, you stop. So different types, we're looking at intermediate slow distance and long slow distance. Now this doesn't mean this is not a valuable training method, but it's going to be a little bit less intense than some of the other versions I'll show you. So intermediate slow distance, 20 to 60 minutes. It's great for body fat reduction and improvement in cardiorespiratory fitness. Now I'd like to go back to an example that I gave you involving high intensity and low intensity fat burning. Not everyone can work out at a high intensity. It may not be safe. There may not be an activity that is good for their body to do to get them to that intensity level. So in those instances, intermediate slow distance training, using that for body fat reduction could be the only or just the best way. Long slow distance, 60 or more minutes, there is a greater risk of injury in this because you're talking about overuse injuries. The longer you do something for, the greater the chance you have of an overuse injury. Interval training. This is where we get into bouts. Bouts of a difficult intensity followed by a recovery phase. In addition to recovery, you can also have true rest, different kinds of rest, active rest and passive rest. Now, as I said before, it can only be interval training if you alter one thing at a time. I see this all the time at my gym where someone will do a treadmill workout and they may pick one of the programs that's on the treadmill and the incline will go up and they will push their speed down. That defeats the purpose. By doing that, they are really doing continuous training because people tend to want to stay at the same comfort level, and the change in incline, maintaining the same speed, is making them work harder. So they will alter the speed to make the incline more comfortable. Then they end up staying at the same beats per minute on their heart rate. So you are doing an interval workout if you alter the intensity of the work, the duration of the work, the duration of the recovery, and the number of repetitions. So if any of those ways you can alter the intensity of construct the intervals within the interval training workout. All right, here's some examples of aerobic interval training, or just classifications. It's best suited for people that are in a beginning cardiovascular phase. Doing interval training helps to give them a taste of something harder, and then bring them back to normal. And then you try it again, and you bring it back to normal. This is how we can see a greater improvement is by showing them what's harder and giving their body a chance to improve. Now, of course, with someone of beginning levels of fitness, you don't want to go too long with these series of intervals, but you want to make sure that they count as well. And an interval doesn't have to be a high intensity interval. It can merely be a higher intensity interval. In this example, we've got 10 minutes of moderate work, including 2 minutes easy and 1 minute hard. In our Learn to Run programs that I have, it's a Learn to Run class, we start people off with 20 minutes. We warm up walking, we cool down walking, and in the middle, we run for 30 seconds, and then we walk for 30 seconds. So essentially 10 minutes, they are doing 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. They're walking, not running, so that is an active recovery. I will add, in a 6-week time, they advance to running for 30 minutes straight. Okay, anaerobic interval training. As I mentioned, aerobic interval training is better for someone of a beginner fitness level, a detrained client. Anaerobic interval training, that means we're working our anaerobic energy systems. We're going to work at a higher intensity, which we're talking 85 to 100% of our functional capacity, our heart rate max. So we want good cardiovascular fitness. They want to increase how fast they are. They want to improve how their body processes its lactate levels within muscular contraction, improve that VO2 max, the waste extraction and expulsion from the body, their aerobic power. So like I said, we're looking at a high intensity, 85 to 100%. There is danger because typically to get these intensities, you're looking at a lot trickier, powerful, fast-moving activity. So risk of injury is a little bit higher in anaerobic interval training, but you are going to be doing it with a skilled athlete versus a detrained couch potato. Also, the next one is Fartlek Training. That is Swedish for speed play. Fartlek Training, I like to explain it, it's kind of whatever you feel like. You can run to a light pole. You can hop over the seams in the street. You can run up and down a hill. You take all of these different elements of the ways that you can alter intensity and combine them into one workout. There aren't set patterns that you need to follow. There's not a set recovery, a certain type of high intensity interval. You go with how you feel and you let yourself recover, and you challenge yourselves in different ways, whether it's the type of exercise you're doing, or how you alter the intensity, speed, are you running up a hill, different things like that. So Fartlek, great way to mix up a workout, not something you want to do all the time, but definitely can break the monotony of a continuous training bout or standard interval training. Circuit training is the next, and you're probably most familiar with circuit training as it refers to strength training. In circuit training, you don't just have to do a weight machine, the next weight machine, the next strength exercise. You can incorporate an aerobic aspect into even the weight training circuit training, because when we do large muscle group continuous movement, we can get a cardiovascular benefit from that. So circuit training could be purely aerobic activities, or you can also include some strength training exercises in your cardiovascular circuit training. So to be true circuit training, you want at least 2 to 3 circuits. Now what a circuit is, you go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. If that's your circuit, you want to repeat that 2 to 3 more times. Within that circuit, you want at least 10 to 15 different exercises with 10 to 15 different repetitions. You're looking for a moderate intensity, not high intensity, because you want to be able to continuously perform this. And a very minimal rest. Pretty much your rest is your transition. This is an example from your book. We have some strength exercises in here, a little bit of active rest, movement throughout this, just going cycling through, heart rate is staying elevated. The last is cross-training. Cross-training is combining different movements. Triathlons are a great example of cross-training because you're incorporating 3 different aerobic methods into one event. You're not strictly doing one thing, but yet it's still an endurance feat that you have accomplished. But cross-training is definitely for someone that is highly trained, that will benefit from a change in the mode of exercise. So you're not just altering the intensity. Cross-training involves doing something different. From being a runner to switching to something that involves you moving in a different plane. Maybe it's boxing, maybe it's playing basketball. You're doing something rhythmic and continuous, but yet you're moving in different directions using different muscles than just your standard running muscles. Here's an example of a cross-training program. This is in your book as well, but just incorporating different times, similar to a, you can do it similar to a circuit workout, or change different days of the week, involve a different activity. Maybe you strength train to work on your power for your aerobic activity. Several other cross-training programs. And eventually, what you'll want to get down to is an exercise prescription, a layout of what your client will do for the next 15, 20 weeks based on how they performed in an initial fitness assessment. And laying it out like this, you're able to track their improvement and come up with a new goal once they've completed their maintenance phase.